All right, welcome to another installment of Mike's Big Martial Knife Exploration Journey. This one's going to take just a little bit of flashback for context. Refer to a recent video I did, if you haven't already seen it, on one of the coup de main Bowie knives. I was really impressed with this knife, continue to be really impressed with this knife. I really like it, and it's helped me get over my long-standing trepidation when it comes to hollow ground blades. And as I mentioned in that video, I was impressed with this enough to want to check out other Spanish-made knife brands. So I decided to start with Joker. Now, Joker has a couple of different lines of products that are quite different from each other. They have folding knives. Some are very basic and utilitarian, and some are kind of classic Navaja style. But I think they're best known on YouTube for their bushcraft camping survival line. And these are basic full tang blades, usually ranging somewhere between 3.5 and maybe a 5-inch blade. And they come in a variety of grinds: flat grind, saber grind, Scandi grind. But all the reviews I've seen have just raved about them. They put them to some really hard tests, and they've proven to be just very, very useful and durable, giving brands like EC, Ontario, Becker definitely a run for their money. But then Joker also has a line of what they refer to as hunting knives, or in the description, self-described Spanish-style Bowies. Now, these are not full tang knives. They're rat tail tangs, either with hardwood handles or at a premium price you can get antler, either crowned or uncrowned. These are the same Mova steel as the coup de main, also deeply hollow ground in a variety of lengths and shapes. So I decided to pick one that reminded me a lot of what I've seen being used as a fighting Facon in Eskrima Criolla, something with a pretty straight blade and a guard. Kind of looks like it's made out of an old bayonet. And I'm not quite sure what to think about it yet. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Joker Chamois. So is the name of the knife supposed to be pronounced chamois or chamois? Well, if you're talking about the particular kind of leather that is commonly used as a buffing, cleaning, absorbent cloth, that's pronounced chamois, which is a corruption of the name of the Alpine or Pyrenees mountain goat that the leather originally comes from. And the name of the goat is usually pronounced Cham-Wow. So I'm assuming Joker named their blade after the goat and not the cleaning cloth. So I'm going with Chamois. Now, of course, I'm going to run my usual impact and durability tests, but let's take a look at the out-of-the-box edge. Shaving sharp, yes. Deeply hollow ground, yes. Molybdenum vanadium steel that my test files are saying somewhere between 55 and 60. The 60 file had trouble cutting it, so I think it's closer to 60 than 55, which is pretty good for Mova steel, which usually maxes out its hardness somewhere around 57. But, okay, shaving sharp, paper, effortless slicer. A little bit of cardboard. Okay, hollow ground knives, when it comes to going through binding material, I tend to get a struggle. Okay, I think I'm going to wind up calling this Cham-Wow, assuming it holds up to the rest of my tests. Let's find out. Let's talk about the sheath. Pretty impressive. Nice, thick leather with accent stitching. Also, speaking of accents, has nice Joker logo stamped onto it. Now, it's a basic belt loop sheath, which for me and a long blade doesn't work the best. We'll talk about that in carry and handling. Diagonal thumb brake strap, but I feel like In this default position, it's on the wrong side. It's on the edge side, which means during drawing, yeah, the edge could potentially cut up the strap. Also, as I mentioned, with other Bowie-style knives, my preference for carry orientation, this only allowing you one, which on strong side would be edge-facing rear. All right, though, this blade and this sheath shape. First of all, the blade shape is reasonably uniform. Sheath, absolutely uniform. And the nice thing about that is I can insert it, and it is a pretty snug fit. I have been kind of breaking it in. I can insert it just fine with the blade in either orientation. Now, when it came to me, it did have a little bevel cut on one side for the original orientation of the blade, so I put the same kind of bevel cut on the other side, and now it does allow me to carry the blade in the sheath any way I want. And we'll talk about that in carry and handling, but that's an awesome bonus. So I'm going to say sheath is a win. Let's talk about fit, finish, build quality, but I want to start by going over the specs. Because when I first picked this up, things immediately got weird. What am I talking about? Well, first number to throw out at you, about $80 is what I picked this up for at Amazon, so not a huge investment. Now, this is with the basic olive wood grips, which are pretty attractive. We'll talk about those in a second. If you want to upgrade, though, to antler, it's probably going to cost you about 75% more. Also affecting the price, you have choices in this model of blade length. The grips are the same, but the blades range from about 6 2/3 inches up to 13. I picked the 10-inch, the 26-centimeter blade, which is uniformly about 1 1/8 inches, about 2.7 centimeters wide front to back, but at the spine is pretty much 5 millimeters thick. But the whole thing only weighs 10 ounces, 283 grams. For the point of balance, it's about 1.5 inches into the blade, about 4 centimeters. How is that possible? Well, I think a couple of things. One, if you look at the blade, it does have a pretty deep fuller in it. And when it comes to the lines and finish of the blade, it's not bad. Lines are pretty crisp, but they do wander a bit here and there. Also, the finish, it's a brushed finish, or what I would describe as they quit at about 120 grit on the sanding belt. So it's a bit coarse, but not egregiously so. If I wanted to polish it up, it'd be pretty easy to do. Spine is nice and square, but I think where you're getting most of the reduction, okay, it does have a bit of a swedge for a false edge. It's not sharpened. There's about 2 millimeters of blunt here. Am I going to sharpen that? You know me, probably, yeah. But, okay, a really high and really deep hollow grind. I took a lot of metal off here. Makes it very slicey. How is it going to hold up to my impact and durability tests? That's where I'm kind of worried. Getting down to the rest of it, though, okay, so you've got an S-curve guard that is pretty wide and favors the front quillin. Now, fighting Facon that I have seen do have this sort of bayonet-style blade shape, but bigger crescent guards to protect the hand, kind of like a sharpened sai, but smaller guard, well, it's much more designed for carry. We'll talk about it in Martial Impressions handling, assuming it survives the tests it's about to go through. But speaking of survive, okay, another thing that I think is playing into the weight equation is they say that they intentionally chose a rat tail tang to reduce weight, and then the olive wood is really light, and it's not finished. I mean, it's nice and smooth and crisp, but it's not lacquered or anything, which gives it a certain kind of a porous texture, which I figure will be really great for retention if it gets wet. But it adds to just that disturbing sense that I'm holding something made out of styrofoam in my hands and not steel and wood. Also, the shape of the grip. It's 4 1/4 inches long, 11 centimeters. Overall length is 14.5 inches, 37 centimeters. But the grip is almost as thick as it is wide front to back. Flat on the sides, rounded on the front. You do have kind of a finger trail here for your index finger. But just the width and it's It's odd, it's different, and I'm not sure if I like it yet. It's kind of growing on me. Now, I certainly could reshape it to fit my hand, however, but okay, let's talk about that rat tail. It's got a metal butt cap. I cannot see how that rat tail is attached or peened, or even if it's full length. And I'm not going to know unless the knife comes apart during testing. So I think we better get to it and see, well, if it survives. So how did it do? I'm going to say impressively well. And I did go a little bit harder on it than I do with some of my other knives because I really wanted to test the thinness of that edge and this grip construction. So taking it to my pal, stabbing and thrusting, it's a really good penetrator for that. It's light, it's quick, and that grip is surprisingly comfortable in all orientations. Now, in the reverse grip with the blade turned towards me, I did get just a little bit of bite from the guard, but otherwise, again, surprisingly grippy and comfortable. This grip shape is really growing on me. So then off to the bamboo test to see if I can intentionally induce a chip or a roll in this, well, pretty thin, fine, sharp, slicey edge. Now, I actually did the bamboo test twice. Once I didn't get on camera because we're back at the dark, rainy season for the next 6 months. But I just wanted to run it through it quick to kind of get a sense of where this was going to go. It survived that just fine. Then I went ahead and cut up some cardboard, some packaging, even made myself some dinner with it. And yeah, it's a fantastic slicer. Went back out the next day, and yeah, I really went at the bamboo at, well, some cases more extreme angles than I usually go to it at. And the result, all right, is a little bit of damage. I'm going to say the slightest amount of micro glinting. You can barely see it. Let me see if you can hear it with the scraper. Probably barely. I could feel it. But yeah, did not really diminish the edge at all. Grab some paper quick. Yeah. Then I went to carving and chopping on some boards. And yeah, this is not only a really great slicing, carving knife, but when it got to the chopping stage, penetration into the boards was just amazing, considering how little weight it has. It was cutting, biting deep. So yeah, did a whole lot better than I thought it would. Took zero damage doing that whatsoever. And yeah, very comfortable doing so. That grip actually is kind of nice. I was thinking I might make some changes, reshape it. I don't think I am, at least not yet. But I think one thing I am going to do is go ahead and put my little sharpened swedge there on that false edge. And then we'll talk about handling. All right, down to the unflattering waistline view to talk about carry. Now, A lot of the time I am simply slipping this diagonally across my back in my belt, Facon carry style with a blade of this length. For me, that's an effective, easy carry system, but I've also been trying to use it, well, from the belt loop. And yeah, because it's kind of a stiff belt loop, it doesn't move with me, especially when I try to sit down very comfortably, but it is workable, wearable. Now, let's talk about orientations in this particular carry. Set up as from the factory, edge facing behind me in the strong side carry. I am having some snag from the thumb brake strap. It just wants to hook itself on that forward guard. So yeah, you're going to see some snag. Now, if I draw it in the reverse grip, not so bad. If I draw it in more of a conventional straight grip, that is quite a contortion for my old arthritic shoulder. If twist my hand over and draw it cavalry style, yeah, I can do that, but yeah, you saw some of the snag there. Also, there was some snag because, yeah, the sheath was really, really tight from the factory. I've done a lot of break-in with it to make it smoother, and what you just saw me do is put it away reverse so that the edge is facing forward. In this orientation, I'm not getting the snag. I mean, the thumb brake strap still works to secure the knife, but it's not snagging on the guard because it's curved the other way. Now, straight grip, yeah, can do that. Reverse grip. This is a long knife to try to feed in a conventional grip. Reverse grip, yeah, that comes out pretty nice. There's a little bit of snag there. And reversing my hand, cavalry style, yeah, it's, I'm going to say, nicely workable. So how does the Chamois handle as a martial tool? I'm going to say pretty impressively in its role. Again, this does kind of match the blade shape, at least, of some fighting Facon I have seen. And in that capacity, yeah, it's very light, it's very quick, it moves very well. Doesn't have the most blade presence inertia, but I feel like I could use it as a parrying tool, which would also make it a great companion for something more sizable. So yeah, it could serve that role for me as well, while giving me good blade length and reach. So yeah, slashing, cutting, snap cutting, especially given its weight and balance, yeah, it's very quick. And yes, I did sharpen the back swedge so I can get those back cuts going and make the best use of it. In stabbing and thrusting, yeah, that's got a nice tip. Great penetration, good security in the grip. Now the grip for me still does feel a little bit fat. I might slim it out, give it a little bit of taper and swell. I think it would suit the blade profile a bit better. But yeah, definitely able to make it work as a martial tool. That also gives me some options for grip. Now that guard is a bit wide, and I did dehorn it just a little bit, take off some of the sharper corners. That does allow me to hook an index finger over it in both blade orientations. Also can hook the thumb over the top of the grip as well, which is good not only for utility use, but again, certain close work, and we've talked about this in other videos. So I have a number of options in terms of ways I can grip it, including, yeah, it's a little bit weird. I could use it North American Bowie style with the blade facing towards me, make use of, well, this parrying surface back here, and yeah, it does have a sharpened back edge at this point, but for me, the geometry of this particular blade really does seem to favor conventional edge facing away from you. Now, in the reverse grip, that is certainly long enough I could lay it across my forearm for an emergency parrying device if I absolutely needed to do that. It is a bit long for me to feel comfortable slashing and stabbing with, but yeah, you could certainly do it. And transitions are surprisingly nice. It is a tad fat for my patented finger twirl, but I could certainly do it. Pinch flipping though, even though it doesn't have any flare, it would probably be a little bit more secure with some flare taper to it down at the pommel. But yeah, olive wood. This is not lacquered or anything. It's still smooth, but it's surprisingly kind of grippy, and more so when it gets wet. They did say this holds up pretty well to, well, moisture. And yeah, it's just, even though it's a smooth grip, it has an interesting amount of grippiness. The shape of the grip with that finger choil makes it really easy to index with a very straight blade like this, so I can easily tell which way the blade's facing. Yeah, it's just giving me a whole lot of confidence. So, liking it. Now, as I mentioned, there are some other blade lengths and profiles available from Joker, and they're all surprisingly affordable if you go with the base wooden grips versus the antler. So here I am thinking, well, what if I went for something that was a bit shorter but a bit broader, a little bit more like a traditional buoy design? So spoiler alert for our next video, we're going to be talking about the Zorro. Until then, as always, if you have any questions about these knives, if you have any other Joker products or any other Spanish-made knives you'd like to recommend, let's get our conversation going in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, following my journey, subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, and I do hope to see you back for El Zorro.